Hey all you groovy people. I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed the Batman the Caped Crusader animated series. Personally, I just love how it was very different and unique from all the other Batman projects out there. This new take on Harley Quinn was so terrifying that I took a month off from the show just to get over my fears of getting mind controlled by some psycho dominatrix. And I just love how it features villains that we've never seen before, like Firebug, Gentleman Ghost, and Onomatopoeia. Now, I don't know about you, but new and unique live-action Batman projects are definitely something that I want to see sometime in the future. We've seen multiple live-action takes on the Riddler, Two-Face, Bane, Catwoman, and the Joker. So it's only fair that we get a new Batman villain somewhere down the road. I'd also welcome a take on Mr. Freeze that's actually a character and not just Arnold Schwarzenegger making cold puns all the time.
Let's kick some ice. You're not sending me to the cooler. All right, everyone. Chill.
I hate you.
Now is the perfect time to get this done, as we're going to get multiple Batman projects from both Matt Reeves' Batman universe and James Gunn's DCU. So with all that said, I thought I'd make a list on the top 10 Batman villains that should get live action treatment. But before we get into this, please be sure to like and subscribe to Reverb Comics. You do not want to miss out on our awesome content. Now without further ado, let's start the list. First on the list is Baby Doll. Mary Louise Doll starred in some sort of sitcom TV show when she was a kid and an adult. She always got cast as a little girl since she suffered from some sort of condition that prevented her body from growing into an adult. Hence, for the rest of her life, she was an adult trapped inside of a child's body. Because of this, she couldn't go on and start a family of her own. As a consequence, she got pretty jealous of her old TV castmates who all led much happier lives. Eventually, this caused her to go insane. She ended up kidnapping her old TV castmates and held them prisoner on the abandoned soundstage of her old sitcom. My interpretation of this is that she did this just to hang on to a time in her life when things were just a bit better for her. On top of her being a really empathetic villain, she's super interesting as she's not the type to get her way through physical violence. Instead of her kidnapping her castmates through brute strength, she schemed and got her way through her wits. Unfortunately, she's unlikely to get live action treatment, as I imagine it's pretty hard to find a kid actor who can pull off playing an adult trapped inside a child's body. Now, next up on the list, we got a super creepy villain known as the Dollmaker. Technically, this guy already made a live action appearance on the Arrow TV show, but I won't count it since this Dollmaker didn't make a live action appearance as a Batman villain. The first Dollmaker, Marcel Mannequin, wasn't that scary as he used his sentient mechanical dolls to commit crimes. The second Dollmaker, Anton Scott, was a little more interesting. He's the son of Winslow Scott, otherwise known as the Toyman. His parents abandoned him, and I presume they left him to fend for himself. Driven by his abandonment issues, the guy kidnapped other children and turned them into these cybernetic doll slaves. He became fixated with the Daily Planet reporter Kat Grant and asked her to be his new mom. As you'd expect, she did not take him up on his offer. The third Dollmaker, Barton Mathis, is probably the most horrifying version of the character. His dad took him on hunting trips where they killed and cannibalized a bunch of people. As a consequence of this, he grew up to be a serial killer who created dolls out of the body parts of his victims. If we ever get a horror Batman villain, the Barton Mathis Dollmaker should definitely be featured as an antagonist. Next up on the list, we have the Birthday Boy. Ray Salinger made his first appearance in Batman Earth 1 and was created by G.F. Johns and Gary Frank. This guy's just a straight up freak as he's fascinated with killing people in a very particular way. He'd wear a burlap sack with holes cut out for his eyes and a birthday party hat. Before killing his victims, he'd put them in a room decorated like a young girl's birthday party, have a cake lit with candles ready, and tell them to make a wish. What's super scary about this guy is that he's just massive. You can just feel the guy's brute strength popping out of the page. He was hired by Mayor Oswald Cobblepot to take out some of the Penguin's enemies. This guy would be perfect for a horror/crime drama Batman flick, as this villain doesn't have any powers and would make for a grounded Batman story. Now, I got a feeling that ManBat will make an appearance in James Gunn's DCU. Dr. Kurt Langstrom is a zoologist who wanted to develop an extract intended to give humans a bat's acute sonar sense. I guess he couldn't find anyone who he can test on since he decided to test the extract on himself. In a way, his formula worked as he turned himself into a monstrous human-bat hybrid creature. The only downside is that Kirk would lose his sanity while he's ManBat. As a consequence, Batman would have to deal with him terrorizing Gotham. Most of the time, Batman would come up with a new compound that would reverse the effects of his ManBat formula. So to sum up ManBat, he's not too terrifying and he's pretty fantastical. So he'd be perfect for James Gunn's DCU. I have a feeling that he's more or less going for that vibe for a cinematic universe. Next up on the list, we got Professor Pig. Technically, this guy already made a live-action appearance in the Gotham TV show, however, I won't count this one as Bruce wasn't Batman at this point in the series. Professor Pig made his first appearance in the first issue of Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin series. Now, technically he's not a Bruce Wayne Batman villain since Dick Grayson was Batman for the majority of the series, but he's still a Batman villain nonetheless. He's pretty similar to the Anton Scott Toyman in the sense that he kidnaps people, brainwashes them, and turns them into these Dolltron creatures. He's so disturbing that I straight up do not want to keep talking about him. Now, the Mad Hatter is a pretty interesting villain that I want to see at some point in the future. He's made live-action appearances in Gotham, Batwoman, and the 1960s Batman show. However, I put him on this list since it's been a while since he's fought Batman. The Mad Hatter, otherwise known as Jervis Tech, is a brilliant neuroscientist who uses these Alice in Wonderland-inspired hats to control the minds of his victims. For whatever reason, he's really fixated on the Alice in Wonderland story. I don't know about you, but these sorts of stories just are not for me. He's so fixated on this story that he'd often kidnap people and force them to participate in his own Alice in Wonderland tea parties. One time, he kidnapped a young Barbara Gordon and got her to dress up as Alice, which I'm pretty sure left her pretty traumatized. Oddly enough, he's a character that can be utilized in a pretty interesting way. For instance, in the Batman the Animated Series cartoon, he used his mind control technology on Bruce and tricked him into believing that he lived in a reality where his parents were still alive and he never became Batman. Onomatopoeia is also an interesting character that I want to see at some point in the future. Now, this guy's mostly a Green Arrow villain. He's made his first appearance in the Green Arrow series in 2002 and was created by Kevin Smith and Phil Hester. He does, however, make for a great Batman villain as he's a serial killer who targets non-superpowered superheroes. He's pretty interesting in the sense that there's a lot of ambiguity to the character. Nobody knows who he is or why he's fixated on killing non-metahuman superheroes. I hope he makes an appearance in James Gunn's DCU because that character can be used to pay homage to the comic book medium. His name, of course, is derived from the fact that he imitates the noises around him. I just love it if he did some sort of crash bang boom pow combo to Batman. Next up on the list is Clayface. I'm actually pretty surprised he hasn't made a live action appearance yet. There's rumors that he might show up as a villain in Matt Reeves' Batman sequel. However, the rumor is that he's going to be the Golden Age version of the character. The Basil Carlo Clayface was a B-list actor who was driven insane after he learned that a remake of an old movie that he starred in would be made without him. As a consequence, he begins to kill the actors in the exact same way that their characters die in the movie as a sort of poetic justice. And I thought modern day celebrities were crazy. The post-Infinite Crisis version of the character is much more fantastical. The Carlo version of Clayface injected himself with blood samples of the Preston Payne and Sandra Fuller versions of Clayface. As a consequence, he declared himself the ultimate version of Clayface as he could shapeshift and turn into basically anything that he can imagine. His origin stories are more or less the same throughout all continuities. He grew up in a poor family and strived to be an actor as a way to get noticed. Usually, he ends up scheming to land more acting roles and leading parts. Next up on the list, we have Lady Shiva. For those of you who don't know, Lady Shiva is the best martial artist in the DC universe. She's so skilled that Deathstroke wouldn't even challenge her, and Batman went on the record as stating that she may well be the best fighter alive. Sometimes she doesn't antagonize the Dark Knight. For example, she trained the third Robin, Tim Drake, and she trained Batman after he got his back broken by Bane. There are a lot of times in the comics where she serves as an antagonist as she is a contract killer. She's totally willing to kill if the situation calls for it, which, as we know, is a quality Batman does not like in a person. She'd make for a super interesting villain as it's always fun to see Batman outsmart his enemies as opposed to just beating them through brute force. And at the top of our list, we have the Ventriloquist. I just feel as though this guy is a perfectly broken yet extremely dangerous Batman villain. The Arnold Wesker version of the character was born into a powerful, organized crime family, and he started to develop dissociative identity disorder after he saw his mother get assassinated by thugs from a rival family. Growing up, his only outlet was ventriloquism. As a consequence, his alter is expressed through the Scarface dummy. He's pretty interesting and unique as most characters with dissociative identity disorder like Moon Knight and Crazy Jane oftentimes switch from one alter to another. Ventriloquist, on the other hand, expresses his two identities at pretty much the same time. Scarface comes off as the aggressive and dominant identity, while Wesker is more passive, quiet, and shy. They always interact with each other, which is pretty interesting. Scarface usually verbally berates Wesker and tries to come off as if he's the criminal mastermind behind the schemes. There are other versions of the Ventriloquist like Peyton Riley and Shauna Belzer, but personally I find the dynamic between Arnold Wesker and Scarface the most fun and interesting. But what do you think? Do you agree with this list? What live-action Batman villain do you want to see next? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe to Reverb Comics so that you do not miss out on our awesome content. Stay groovy.